Got a new sound rig today, so hopefully I sound okay.
Sound very clear.
Excellent.
Are you at home or in the office?
I'm at home.
Ah, got a nice sign for
Yeah. They're from a few events. We've had them sitting around for a long time, and it's about time I use them. Got a new sound rig today, so hopefully I sound okay.
Sound very clear.
Right. Five minutes to go.
How are things going?
For the
yeah,
really good. AutoTalk web traffic is up dramatically. We're 50% year on year. It's been really, really positive.
Yeah. Really, yeah, you really notice the difference. I mean, it's one of those things that the information that you need have really been, coming to you guys has been really important.
Excellent. We like to hear that. And just the usual busy time of the month, ramping up to our magazine. So that'll be out later this week.
Cool. Who's on the cover this time? Was that?
It's a surprise for now.
That's the Herald in me coming out, mate. Get that scoop.
Right.
I'll grab a glass of water.
Yeah, no worries. Not sure if you can hear that helicopter passing overhead.
Can do. As long as it's not the police helicopter, you should be fine.
No. We are about 200 meters from the local landing spot for the Northland Rescue helicopter.
Oh yeah, where is that?
It's in the domain.
Oh yeah,
over by the tennis courts.
Oh, so you're quite central then. You walk to Wood Street.
Yeah. About a 5-minute walk from your place. Couple more minutes. We don't start until after the allotted time.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah. You weren't tempted to pop up over the weekend?
Yeah, we did think about it, but we didn't plan to. We didn't get organised enough. Then the weather was pretty rubbish, so
it was packed up here.
Oh, was it?
Yep. Business is back. It was very good.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, my parents headed off to the place down in Matarangi, so it's good to see everyone get out and about.
Yeah.
We definitely got out to the, the local pubs and stuff. It was good. Good to see everyone back out. sooner we're in level 1, the better.
Right. The numbers are doing their usual last minute rush. Glad to see everyone joining us. Just going to make sure you've got permission to share. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can share slides.
Yeah, it says green on my screen.
Yeah, no worries at all. Okay. One more minute and then we'll kick off.
Cool.
Cool. Right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next of our AutoTalk webinars, or if you're watching this later on, videos, where we discuss various issues or topics that we think are of great value to the automotive trade, and particularly dealers out there. Now, just before we get into the session, just a few little housekeeping items. If you do want to ask a question during the webinar, then feel free to use the Q&A button down at the bottom of the screen if you're on Zoom, or you can also use the chat function. If you are on YouTube, then ask that through the chat function on the side of the YouTube window. And if you're struggling with either of those, feel free to email them to me at richard@automediagroup.co.nz. Now, if you are on Zoom and you're having any issues, or you've got colleagues that can't access Zoom, we know that's restricted for some parties out there, then I'm just copying into the chat window now the link to our live YouTube stream. Doesn't have quite the functionality, but it does have all of the video coming through, of course. And that link will stay live after this event, so you are able to go back and watch this later on, or if you find this of value, pass this on to your colleagues or to your friends in the industry to show them what was discussed. So today we are talking something I think that's very important to every dealer out there, and that is how to get the most value out of your advertising spend. And we're here today with someone who's got an awful lot of experience in the advertising game.
Old.
Todd Fuller was around for a very long time, selling advertising to dealers and distributors through his role with various media outlets. And now he has kind of jumped the fence and is working to help dealers get the best bang for their buck in their marketing spend. Thank you for joining us, Todd.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, a 30-year career with the Herald and print and radio and digital, but now in the agency side of things and enjoying it.
Excellent. And I just quickly, because AdTalk Edge is relatively new to the New Zealand market, can you just give us a really quick sum of what AdTalk does and what you're doing with AdTalk?
Yeah, so AdTalk Edge was two companies in Australia. One was a guy called John O'Neill, who started the agency in Sydney, basically because he couldn't find an agency sort of 14 years ago that understood the automotive market. And then Edge Marketing was a company that had set up in Melbourne, and that came about because they couldn't find anybody that could build a proper automotive website. And then about 4 years ago, those two companies merged. About 700 odd dealers in Australia have now got offices in Malaysia and Singapore. And then they approached me and said, hey, look, we'd like you to look at coming on as an owner partner and bringing the AutoTalk Edge facilities to New Zealand, which we've now been out in the market for about 2 years now.
Fantastic. Now, of course, AutoTalk Edge picks up a lot of data through its processes. Can you kind of give us an indication of how things are out there at the moment, and what AutoTalk data are you seeing that's come through over the COVID-19 period, and now as we're climbing out of it? I mean, how are things kind of working?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Look, we had some time in lockdown, as I think everybody did, to go through the data. And obviously, we've got a lot of dealerships on board, mainly franchise dealerships. But we went through all that data. I think one of the things to come out of it in level 4 was, website traffic was down 90%. Phone calls coming into dealerships was down 90% at level 4. So it was really a massive hit for everybody. There were some interesting stats that came out, I think, when we went into level 3, April 27th. The phone calls and website traffic just went crazy, like a 475% increase. So it really hit hard for those first few days. And then I think now that we're in level 2, we're generally getting the website traffic and the call volumes coming into dealerships back at pre-COVID levels. Some are at 90%, some are a bit more. Some of those people with things like the rental car sellouts at the moment are getting higher rates of inquiry than average. But yeah, I think we've all been pretty impressed with the numbers that have come back in level 2.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, the joy of digital marketing is you've got that data, and I mean, how can dealers use that to make sure they're getting value for what they're spending? I mean, at the moment, every dollar kind of counts.
Yeah, look, I had a very long career in the traditional media space where it was very hard to track what was happening in that space. I think one of the greatest things about digital advertising is being able to measure that advertising, and that's so critical to everything that we do. A while ago, everything was about click-throughs and impressions. One thing that we do at AutoTalk Edge and other agencies do is very much now look at the conversion paths and making sure that the money that you're spending on digital is actually converting to a test drive and converting to a sale. And one of the biggest things that we've been trying to do through our company and a lot of other people, and I think what dealers need to really do, is look at that conversion path. And when I say the conversion path, it's about being able to get that sales data at the end of the month and plug it on in. And in the real basic terms of what we try and do is we try and look at, you've got the sale. So that means we've got the person's either their email, their mobile number, or their name. And then we track that back. So when we're looking at the conversion path, we're then being able to say, you know what, Richard bought a car off us. He saw us 2 months ago on a Facebook advert and inquired. He then saw us on a Google display campaign. He then came through to programmatic, and then he came through for a telephone call. So then it allows the dealership to start to see where that conversion path is. And too many people at the moment, we're still looking at last click attribution, which Google obviously love, because you generally get Google My Business at the end of that. But how did they get to Google My Business? What we're trying to show dealerships now is there's a whole conversion path through that you can track through the digital space, so you can understand where your dollars count. And then obviously at the moment, everybody's talking to us about how we can best spend our dollars and how we can reduce costs. And basically by using that conversion path, that's the key to how we're trying to do it in this day and age.
And of course, I guess to get that kind of data, you need to be working with someone like yourselves, or there's a couple of other operators in the market that kind of assist in tracking those links through. I mean, is this the kind of stuff dealers do themselves, or is it kind of pretty difficult to
Yeah,
get a
look,
finger on?
there are some dealerships with marketing departments that do this very well. It is possible to be able to do it yourselves, absolutely. I just think there's a big difference when you're using an agency purely because we've got people that are specific in those roles. Um, it's kind of like when we've got people that are in the marketing and they're doing all of the marketing for a dealership, but they're not the experts in AdWords and social and programmatic. I think one person trying to be sort of a jack of all trades makes it really, really difficult for agencies to be able to get the best bang out of their buck.
Mm-hmm. So post-COVID, look, dealers are, every dollar counts. We're seeing some redundancies out there in the trade. People are tightening down spending. I mean, how do dealerships look at cutting their costs in the marketing area? I mean, it must be a very delicate thing. I mean, I know during the COVID period that we all saw things like Trade Me and so forth, discounting everyone's billing, provided that they maintain their listings and so forth. We've gotten through that period now. Should people still have every one of their cars online on everywhere? I mean, what's your process for working that out?
Yeah, I think the classified sites, I think having the listings there, it's more about the campaigns that people are running. And there's still too many dealerships when we go into them that are doing the scattergun approach. So, maybe putting an ad across a traditional media news site where they're just trying to get as many people as possible. We just have gone away from that completely, and everything we do is really about in-market audiences. That period, that 90-day period, that 6-week period, we can track those people. We know that these people are in market. And trying to give people examples for that for dealerships is we've got some exclusive rights with Trade Me where we use the Trade Me data. So once we see that somebody's actually on Trade Me looking for a vehicle or watch listing a vehicle, then we can use that data to stalk them across the internet. I know I'm not supposed to use that terminology, but I know that the dealers also understand that terminology. So the biggest focus, right? So for the dealerships, the currency that they use is leads. And you've got to be able to go away from doing the big picture stuff for dealerships and really concentrating on bringing leads. That's the currency we need to use. And the best way to get leads is to only advertise to the people that are in market. And that's how you reduce your costs and you get better conversion. So better cost per lead, better cost per acquisition. And that's a real focus for us and what should be for all dealerships.
I know you've kind of already said it, but can you just clarify the term in market? So how do you establish if someone's in market?
Yeah, well, it's a very complicated kind of way of doing it. But yeah, I suppose the way that we look at in-market audiences is being able to look off the back of classified sites like Trade Me, but also in the many different ways. So they've been either looking at the manufacturer site, or they've been looking at reviews on YouTube, or they've been looking at finance options, car finance options. All of those triggers, which we've got audience segments for that we've built up, AutoTalk just built up over 14 years. You've got audience segments which allow you to know that when people are doing this kind of activity, we now know that they are in the market and that's who we target. And the proof is in the pudding. When you start to get your targeting done, and the targeting with dealerships, once you get involved, get better month on month on month.
Yes, I mean, what's the process? I mean, what kind of tools are out there for dealerships to kind of find their specific in-market audiences?
Yeah, so it basically comes down to audience segments, and I think there are some basic tools across Facebook and Google that a dealership can use if they're not going to be using an agency, and those are fairly basic. And then if you move into the agency, well, we've obviously built audience segments over a long period of time that we then start to optimize as we go along that space. It's a bit of a complicated beast, but I think once people start to use people like ourselves or other agencies, they start to see a lot of a more integrated way of doing the advertising.
Mm-hmm. I'll ask a question slightly out of the order here, but are dealerships missing something by not necessarily going broader to pick up people who aren't necessarily in market, particularly with things like those rental sales? There might be someone who wasn't necessarily considering a new car, but they see a deal and like the possibility. I mean, are they missing something, or is that not necessarily the most efficient use of advertising dollars at the moment to add those people into your mix?
Yeah, there is always going to be there's always going to be that passive audience that you can trigger. I think one of the things that we try and do is not waste that money on that passive audience. I think the passive audience, really, the money from a dealership's point of view, the money's really getting spent by Ford and Mazda and Subaru. They're kind of out in that market doing that passive piece with television and stuff like that. What we try and do, and where we're trying to spend the dealership's money the best that we can, is purely by concentrating on that in-market audience. Mm-hmm. And yes, you could argue that that's not, you are going to miss some people, but I just think it's a better way to spend your money, especially pre-COVID.
Yeah, all about that efficiency when money isn't necessarily easy to come by. Yeah. What does it cost to get a lead? I mean, what are the benchmarks and across the industry and in the digital space for what you got to spend to get someone in the door, basically?
Yeah, that's interesting. We're spending quite a bit of time, and in Australia we're working with KPMG, and over here we would like to start to maybe talk with Deloitte with our Ellis product, because we're looking at benchmarking what the automotive spends are like. An average sort of spend for a lead in New Zealand is around about $60. For a Facebook lead, it's sort of around about $80 per lead. That's kind of the benchmark. We would hope to always better that, but that, if you look across a standard digital, it's around about $60 a lead. And then what we try and do with dealers is, when we go into their businesses and sit down with them and have a look at it, if they're sort of saying to us, hey, what I actually need is 7 more car sales a month or 15 more car sales a month, then we work back from that and say, well, to do that, you're going to have to advertise here, here, and here, and this is how much you're going to need to spend to reach that.
So $60 odd or $80 for Facebook. What did it used to cost? I mean, in the past, when we had a lot more, we'd say a lot more. We had a more broader base or more traditional base of media. I mean, what did a lead cost traditionally?
Well, I can't put my foot forward there because I was the one selling print. So I was very difficult to see. I was back in the day when the Herald was Trade Me. So putting a run on in those days was sort of $30, and that created leads as well as all the full pages and kind of stuff. So I don't think we ever really had a true cost per lead in that space. I think cost per lead really has come about a lot more through the digital space. I think in the old days, people used to sort of work on, if I spend $250 a vehicle, that was how people budgeted it. I've got 30 cars on the yard, I should be spending this per month. That was kind of the old traditional way. Didn't really get down to the lead per se, but how much I should spend per vehicle. And I think that's changed now, and I think the cost per lead now has become a lot more relevant.
I think it's interesting because, and I've got to be careful here, but you can get some negativity in the dealer space about what they pay to Trade Me and pay to other digital advertising platforms out there. But arguably, compared to what they were paying in the past for the return they're getting, it sounds like it's a multiple of better value than what perhaps they were looking at in the past before these options became available.
Yeah, so sometimes I get told by the industry that I must have been ripping them off when the Herald was charging $25,000 a page, but they were
the times.
they were different times, and we just didn't really do a cost per lead like we do now. And it's interesting when you sit down with a dealership, valuing up what a cost per lead is, and obviously different leads are worth different money. So we've got call tracking tools that we put in, so we monitor every phone call and where it comes from. And when you look at those kind of leads, an average phone call coming into a franchise dealership lasts about 2 minutes 50 seconds, whereas if you get a phone call from Trade Me, on average in New Zealand, it ends up being just over 4 minutes. Now, we know that a longer phone call generally converts higher into test drives. So you can say $60 per lead, but which leads are actually bringing you more? And then I think another really important part, and we've been going around dealerships doing digital training, is that Facebook lead, for instance. You know, we've got a lot of old school salespeople there that they get a Facebook lead and go, "Oh, Todd, it bloody doesn't work, that Facebook shit. I rang the guy and he's not ready to purchase." What we've been telling people is a Facebook lead could potentially be at the start of that journey, at that beginning of that 90-day period. And if you nurture that lead and continue to contact that person through that process, they will buy off you. And we've been able to prove that by doing these kind of seminars with dealerships, teaching them the difference between a hot lead and a Facebook lead. Very, very important to understand where those leads are coming from, but also how they work in the buyer journey.
Can you explain that buyer journey a little bit further? I mean, obviously that's changed as we've gone to these new marketing products coming through. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, look, I did some courses way back in the early 80s to early 90s where we did the buyer journey. Amazingly, the buyer journey is still, and it always has been, that sort of 6 week to 90-day window. And that it always starts with a catalyst, right? So the catalyst being, you know, I've just had a baby, I've got a new job, I've lost my job, which is kind of obviously pertinent at the moment. So that catalyst that always starts. What has obviously changed is how they go about it. I mean, in the old days, it was, you could have literally up to 7 dealership visits per person. We now know that that's down to 1.7, even probably lower than that. That was the stats that we looked at the end of last year. So they're literally, if they're coming onto your yard, they should be buying. And there's like either 900 digital touch points, whether they've watched a YouTube video or a review or a manufacturer's site. They've done so many digital points, and 95% of that journey, only the last part, only that 5% end of that journey is actually with the dealership. So there's a lot of research that goes on before they get to that point. And I think obviously the biggest change in the buyer journey is the digital transformation that they've all been going through.
Conversely, how's the sales pipeline changed? I mean, that change there needs a change from the other side, I guess. Yeah,
the sales pipeline. The sales pipeline is sort of coming back to that Facebook part of it. There's sort of an awareness part where you're trying to get that passive market, and a lot of the manufacturers do that part. Then it's coming to the website from there. And then a big part of that sales journey is remarketing to people. So a lot of the stuff that we do is once the person's actually looked at a vehicle online, we then send them that specific vehicle to target them. So if they've looked at this red Suzuki Swift, the next advertising that we take to that person is the red Suzuki Swift. If they haven't converted, then the next time they see an advert, we're putting the red Suzuki Swift with an offer, with a call to action on it. So that sales journey has changed quite a bit in that process. You know?
So I guess down to the money question, I mean, what are the key areas at the moment that dealerships can make efficiencies on, can save a buck on?
Yeah, personally, I think it's mainly the wasted spend. Once you start to look at the end of the month, and like I said, we put in the sales data, we put in the test drive data, and we track it back through, we start to realize that there's been a lot of money spent where that hasn't actually really driven any specific action from the people. So it's really about being able to analyze the data that you've collected, and then making sure that from that data you're making the increases for the next time and decreases where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. So to do that, you need to know which of your advertising is getting results. I mean, what's the trick for that?
Yeah, I mean, the trick for that is basically collecting the data. So call tracking is a huge part of that. A lot of our dealerships have call tracking. Some of them don't have call tracking. Call tracking is simply, in a really basic form is just putting a number on everything. So you put a number on Google My Business, you put a number on Trade Me, you put a number on all your campaigns, and then then that data at the end of the month tells you where every single phone call came into your dealership. And that's crucial to know where all those phone calls. I mean, phone calls are just consistently on the increase, right? So if you think back to 5 years ago, there was still a lot of inquiry coming from the websites. That now has completely gone away, and the phone number have gone up astronomically.
So, why do you think that is? I mean, that's really interesting that, we had the websites of being the great hope.
Yeah, it's because of this. So we've proved that phone calls in dealerships are increasing by around about 12% per year. And people need to be making sure that they can answer the calls. About 75 to 80% of all inquiry now comes through the telephone. And in America, it's even higher. In America, it's getting up to that sort of 85 to 90% when they're ready to buy, they're actually using the telephone. So there's inquiry coming through before that, but the telephone is really the one that gets the sales. And by having those call tracking numbers, you get to know where every single phone call that's coming into your business, you know where it's come from. And that's been crucial to what we're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of look at that also about how if you look at what's just happening at the moment, like inquiry levels at the moment are really good, and we all sort of believe it's a honeymoon period. I hope it continues. But you look at what's happening there. So you had a month of no inquiry. Then you had the normal months people that wanting cars. So you got that 2 months of people inquiring. But then you've also got a lot of people inquiring around, and I'm probably telling the dealers more, they probably know more of this about me, but a lot of the things we've talked about is a lot of people have been coming and buying cars because they've lost their jobs. They had a company car. And then the biggest one that I think we've noticed since we've come out of this in level 2 is the travel money. So there are so many dealerships, like just about every dealership I talk to, where people are coming in and saying, you know what, I was going to spend 35K on my trip to Europe, and I'm not now, so I'm buying a car. So there's a really good influx of travel money at the moment. And I think that is helping, but how long this period lasts, none of us know. Hopefully for a long time.
If you're not going traveling, I guess a new car is a great way to make you feel good anyway.
Yes, yeah.
How important is the message? I mean, we're talking about how to fine tune and make sure you're getting the right leads coming in, the right advertising money placed in various places. How key is the message? We've gone through this before in other sessions, but
yeah, look, the message is always key. If the car's overpriced and the deal's no good, then it doesn't matter that you've targeted all the right people. I mean, we've been able to look at the rental car sellout stuff at the moment. The leads for those rental car sellouts is off the scale. So the cost per lead on that is like half of the $60.
Now I've seen this one floating around, Todd. I've got a slightly cheeky question for you. Is that, are all the rental car sellouts I'm seeing advertised, I'm seeing a lot of them being advertised, do you think they're all rental cars? Or is it such a good selling tool at the moment that...
I refuse to comment. I'll take the amendment on that one. That's up to the dealers. We just do the advertising.
Mm-hmm.
But look, the rental car sellout stuff is key to sort of the messages, where the message is key. But I think one of the parts that a lot of dealerships take convincing on this is your creative. So if the message is right and your deal's right, what you really need to do is you need to make sure that your creative is good. And a lot of dealerships in New Zealand don't see the value in spending money on creative. What we've been able to do, prove it again and again, is if you spend a bit of money on your creative, it's the first time that people are going to see your dealership. So it's kind of the shop window, like your website, it's the shop window. It is your showroom. And spending the money on creative will get you better results. So spending a bit of money from a static campaign to an animated campaign, making sure that you come above the noise is really, really critical and really, really important. Whether you're doing it in-house or whether you're using an agency, actually especially in the digital space, putting effort and money and time into your creative will bring down your cost per lead. And we've done case studies where we've used the brand's creative, and it's about $42 a lead, where we can actually use sort of more localized creative for your dealership, bringing that cost per lead down to sort of around 20 something bucks. So people concentrate very much on spending their money in media, but you've really got to also make sure when you're doing your budgets that you spend money on creative.
And I guess, to be clear, I mean, this session today, it's not just about talking about how to cut dollars, it's talking about how to get the most efficient use of those dollars, and clearly localized proper creative is one of those things that will get you that, while it may cost you some money up front, your actual cost down the track in regards to lead return is far, far lower.
Yeah, look, for instance, I mean, in America, I can't remember what the number is, but it's something like 90% of, something like 80% of their all their advertising is dynamic. So it's live inventory. And we try and do that wherever we can with all of our dealers, is that it's live inventory. So when we say live inventory, it means that your stock that you've actually got now is in the actual advertisements. And that's where the most effective advertising you can get. But what happens with dynamic, people are like, oh, but it costs so much to set up. But you can set up a digital dynamic campaign, the creative for it, which might cost you, $1,000, but you can run that 3, 6, 9 months, because what you're actually doing is it's the stock that's getting the people to engage. That's once again about putting the right car in front of the right people. So if we know they're looking for a Suzuki Swift, we know that they're in that price bracket, then let's send them Suzuki Swift advertising. That's the key to that in-market audience stuff.
Okay. Now, you've got all this data. I mean, what do you do with it? I mean, if you're looking at your advertising spend out the place, you've got a particular area where you're not getting calls from it. I mean, is now the time to cut? I mean, how do you make those decisions? How do you?
Yeah, a lot of that is sitting down and just going through it one by one, and going through it with a specialist, or if you've got a marketing person in your dealership, going through everything and figuring out what's not working and what is working. And yet I understand that a lot of them don't have those kind of tools. I mean, it's some of the things that Ellis, our dashboard that we've built, took us 2 years to put it all together to actually tell people, this is what's working, this is what's converting. This is what's converting your media spend into actual test drives and actual sales. It's a complicated beast, and I think that's why people hire agencies to help them out.
Yeah, and I mean, that obviously is something that could be factored into the whole process. And I mean, do you feel working with specialists like yourself has a pretty darn good return on investment for those people out there when you take it in the context of an overall ad spend?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't have left a 30-year career if I didn't believe that AutoTalk Edge can help dealerships. I think one of the joys of my job is when we start the journey with some of the dealerships who haven't got a digital background, or even ones that have but maybe aren't going down the right path. If we can change their spend and show them how it's working, it's a joy, and it's a joy for their dealers too, because not only do they get not only are they getting more leads, but generally we're trying to get them better qualified leads.
Look, firstly, just for those who are listening or watching on either of the channels, if you do have any questions, now is the time to ask them. And we're going to do things a little bit different today for the end of the session, so just so people know to hang around once we go through the next little bit. And that AutoTalk Edge has a new product they're in the process of launching called Ellis. Once we've finished up and taken any questions, if there are any, Todd is going to go through a brief presentation about Ellis and just give you guys out there an idea of what's there. So just to go into our last question while people formulate if they do have any questions. Everyone's coming up with their kind of post-COVID strategies at the moment. They're working out what they're going to do, what changes they're going to make. What's AutoTalk Edge doing to help? I mean, obviously Ellis is a part of that.
Yeah, I think we sat down with myself and the other two owners and kind of looked at what we could do in the space. So in Australia, car sales, we're helping out. Obviously, New Zealand, Trade Me's been helping out. other platforms have all been trying to do what they can help the dealerships out. We've spent all our money on building Ellis, and now that we were launching it, we were like, well, you know what? Ellis is a great tool to help dealerships understand where their money is getting spent. So we're going to put Ellis out to the entire industry free for 6 months. And I really believe that we'll have a dealer consultant be able to talk to them sort of once a month so they can understand the Ellis proposition. But the whole thing about Ellis is that it tracks your advertising, so it can show you where you should be spending money and where you're not spending money. And like I said, at the end I can take just a few slides just to sort of show people what Ellis is, and then after this today, then we are out in the marketplace talking to dealers that can get this tool free for 6 months.
Fantastic. Well, look, we've got one question coming through here. What would you recommend? This from Paul Reinking. Paul, I hope I've got your name right there. What would you recommend dealers do first with their sales team leaders to get some of the old-fashioned dealers into the digital age? I guess you've got staff who've been around a while, they're good salespeople, but perhaps they still need to be dragged a little kicking and screaming.
Yeah. What we have done with some of our dealers that are on board is just we've run them through some seminars where we've actually just taken them through the whole digital process, but also how to. The seminars are about two things. One of them is about teaching the sales guys that your business is actually spending quite a bit of money in the digital space. Because a lot of the old school guys were like, well, if there isn't a full page in the paper, then that's why I'm not selling cars. So one, showing them what the money's getting spent on and how. And then the second part is how to deal with that inquiry. And when we talk about the seminars, we talk about how to deal with inquiry. It means that if somebody's come in on a Facebook lead, then you should go back to them through Facebook. If someone's come in through email, you should email them. If they come by phone them. A lot of people just go straight to the phone. So it's about dealing with the customer. A lot of them come through drive chat or live chat. So about dealing with the customer in the way that they want it to be dealt with before you can get to that phone call. And that's kind of stuff that we do with dealers that have come on board.
The other thing I'd say there, Paul, is we obviously have a large selection of these webinars popping up now on the AutoTalk website that are a really good start for any people like that. And if you talk to your vendors like AdTalk, they're usually more than happy to come along and run your team through similar sessions or training, and not necessarily just bespoke to their product. I mean, these guys generally, like Todd, are experts in their field, and they're usually happy to help bring those staff along, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Right. Thank you so much for that, Paul. That is a great question. Now, I thank you, Todd, for going through the main session. For anyone who wants to carry on, which is hopefully everyone who's still in the room, Todd, go ahead and tell us a little bit about Ellis, and also perhaps just say first how people can get in touch with you if they are interested in the process.
Good point. So how are they going to get in touch with me? I'm not sure.
Start with your email address, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I could. After this, do you have a list of people that come from the webinar that we can?
We can send them out details, but if you've got an email address that people watching can get you on, that's a great start.
It's Todd at AutoTalk. I'll show them on the slide. I think it's at the end there.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, just go ahead and tell us about Ellis.
Yeah. So. It says that your host is disabled attendee screen sharing.
That shouldn't be the case. More.
Ellis came about exactly that. Is that the dealerships because we build websites, we had a dashboard that people used, and then what we found from the industry was that the dashboard did well in showing them where the inquiry came from, but it didn't take them to test drive, and it didn't take them to sales. So it took us a long time to build that, a couple of years. And the whole idea of that is so people can actually figure out that it's great that I got this many leads, but how many of those leads went to test drive and how many of those leads went to sale? And that's been the key to Ellis. So, unfortunately, it doesn't look like I can.
If you quickly email that over to me, I'll pop it up for you. Sorry about that. I have given you permission, but it doesn't seem to be allowing it. The wonderful wonders of technology.
Okay, I will jump out of here.
Sorry, Ron. We'll be backing up and ticking with this in just a moment.
Okay, so I've sent that across.
Yep. Got another question here if you just want to answer in the meantime. What are the key things you're looking at when figuring out your conversions?
Yeah, that really depends on the dealership from conversions. I mean, we can go conversions from actual lead forms is a very important one. Obviously, some people want to track from phone calls. And then it can be right down to finance application, all sorts of drive chat. Just basically, when we set up the conversions, we would sit down with the dealership and go, what are the conversions that you want to track and how do you want to have them placed? And it's different for everybody. But yeah, those are the sort of the main ones that we do is, Facebook, Google, basically the forms that are coming through.
That's not. I think you just have to wing it without the presentation at this stage, and I'll let you know when it comes up. So just carry on.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a bit hard without the slides, but basically what we were just going to say, just what does Ellis actually do? The main thing for Ellis is that it just shows you all the advertising that's working. So it's your visibility across everything. It's your everything's live, so it's your live website, it's your live campaign data. So basically, if you saw the Ellis screen, the inquiry would come up. Facebook lead just came. These leads just came through. So your leads are 24/7 live on a screen. It means a dealer principal at any time can just pop on there, have a look. Most of the dealer principals use it first thing in the morning, lunchtime, and end of the day. And obviously, the marketing managers use it consistently. It's generally their home screen. It's all leads on one platform. So it's your website leads, your telephone leads, your live chat leads, your manufacturer leads, your Trade Me leads, your Facebook leads. All of that's on one dashboard, and it includes a conversion path.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm just going to share this presentation now. Hopefully this will come through. Oh, look, finally, it's allowing you to share now. If you try and share again, you'll be good to go. Beautiful. Do you want me to do it from here?
Sorry.
That's okay. There we go.
Okay, can you see that?
Can, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, guys. So yeah, I'll take you through it quickly because we've sort of stuffed around a bit there. Yeah, so obviously what advertising is working? Your live website and campaign data 24/7, all leads in one place. So, I mean, that's crucial to being able to see everything from your website, telephone, live chat, manufacturer, classified sites, Facebook, source of all your leads. So you know that conversion path, you know where everything's coming from. And obviously leads matching. So you can lead a test drive and from lead to cars sold. You can do month-to-month comparisons. I mean, a lot of people are using it now to see what may look like compared to January. What does it actually mean? Well, it's an accurate account of all your inquiries entering the dealerships from all channels. You make more educated decisions on your marketing budget. You reduce unnecessary spend on ineffective advertising, which is obviously the point of what everybody's been talking about lately. You're holding your agency, whether it's us or someone else, accountable for your campaign management. And once again, one platform for all inquiries. Your analytics, so live website data. So you can just click on there, as you can see on the screen there, every website session for every day, what's happening right now, where it's all coming from. Is it coming from live chat? Is it coming from your website inquiry, your vehicle inquiry? It's all there at your fingertips. Once again, you can do the month by month. Your phone call data. Once again, if you've got call tracking with us, then basically all your phone call data in there. So we can tell you every phone call that's coming through. We can tell you your missed calls. We can text the people when you get a missed call, that text the person to say, hey, we're sorry we missed your call. And we text your sales manager saying, hey, you've missed a call from here. So all of your phone call data is in there. At the moment, most people at dealerships are going for Google campaign data. They've got their Facebook campaign data. They're all on different systems. We've been able to pull all of that into one system. So you end up having one dashboard with all of your analytics on it. Don't have to go all over the place. Obviously, your dealership inquiries, and including all of these, and it's basically in an individual sort of lead. So you can see it in the graphs. You've got your third-party manufacturer leads. So that's your Trade Me leads. That's your manufacturer's leads, all coming into the one dashboard so you know where everything's happening. Obviously, the big part that's taken us quite a long time to build is your leads matching. So leads matching is upload your test drive and your sold vehicle data and then match it against the lead so you can track the customer journey. This is the part where it shows you your whole conversion path. They came on Facebook first, and then they came through a Google display, and then they came through Google My Business, and then they phoned you. This part here shows you all of that. It shows you the source of leads so you know where the money you're spending is actually coming through to test drives and coming through to sales. And obviously, ultimately, it does a return on investment for you. So that was a really quick snapshot of what Ellis is about. I suppose from here, it's a case of people getting in touch with AutoTalk Edge, getting in touch with myself, Todd Fuller. And then, yeah, we'll come out and give you guys a demo of what Ellis can do. And like we said, it's free for 6 months. And it really should help dealerships understand where they're spending.
Fantastic. And it's great to see companies like yourself and others that have kind of moved to offer things like this at the moment, where dealers are under pressure, and this is the kind of thing that can help them make really good decisions at what is a stressful time, I guess for many of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one of the things that we've all noticed in New Zealand is how everyone's pulled together. You know, everyone's sort of helping out wherever they can, and we've had a lot of dealerships that our current dealerships that are loving using this tool. And if we can spread the gospel, then we can help the industry. If the industry gets better, then obviously so will my little agency.
Fantastic. Look, thank you very much for joining us today. If there's anyone out there that does want more information, then Todd gave his email address before, and we'll put out some more information through the email, with contact details through the email that you guys have registered under, who've attended. So you expect that in the next day or so. Now, of course, there's another session later on this week. We've got management and leadership consultant Bruce Ross, who's going to come along and give some guidance on getting the most out of your team at a time like this. I've got a comment there from Paul. Thanks, guys. Very beneficial for me today. I think Paul's going to be giving Todd a call after the session. Yeah, so we've got that session this week, and the next week we've got a session on the very important topic of selling finance and insurance products online and in advance, and how that can help your business, particularly now. But again, like a lot of these things that we've been talking about on these sessions, it's stuff that's kind of been preached as best practice for a long time, and now's the time you really need to go out and do those things. So thank you very much. Feel free to spread this out to others, and we'll email out that YouTube link again shortly, so that you can spread that out to your colleagues as well, or sit your staff in front of it, as Paul was asking about with his need to bring his staff along on the journey. So thank you very much, Todd, and thanks very much for watching.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.